Why did you decide now to start this kind of an investigation? I mean, this is a situation that everybody knows since years.
Yes, but I think that things has changed quite dramatically. Denmark held the presidency in the spring 2012. Back then I was the minister and therefore I was head of the ECOFIN Council. And we had tax proposals on the table as well. And we couldn't move them at all. It was completely dead. Nothing could be passed, nothing could be adopted. And then things changed. And I think this change momentum is due to the work of journalists, of the LuxLeaks groups, of whistleblowers, and of course of the European citizens thinking this should be looked at.
There is something confusing here. We saw that, all these cases, all these revelations were quite shocking for the people, for the European citizens who usually pay their taxes, and sometimes very high taxes, even 50% of their income. And we saw that all these preferential deals with member states are not exactly illegal. Is it true?
Well, this is about the interplay between tax legislation in the country and our common rules against state aid. And these two things has to come together, because a country cannot use tax legislation to give a selective advantage to one company which is not open to other companies. And it is in that interplay that we say, well, if you have given a selective advantage to a company, well, you have to stop it. It's illegal. You have to get them to pay the taxes that they have not paid so far.
Yes, but we saw that member states are not really keen to accept this money back.
Yes, we have our cases appealed, both in the Netherlands but also in Luxembourg. And I think, well, if that can't be any different, then at least we will have the court to do the final judgments. And of course, we have done our best to make a very solid case based on facts and evidence and the interpretation of evidence, because this is of course what we hope the court will accept.
Usually for all these deals it takes two to tango, as we usually say, because for example Belgium was openly calling the multinationals and the companies to come, saying that here there is a unique tax regime. Are you considering to take some measures against the member states with some penalties or sanctions?
When it comes to state aid, we don't work with penalties or fines. It is more like embarrassment and inconvenience, because it's not very nice for a member state if the member state has given you a privilege to say, I have to take it back.
As you said, you were a minister, a finance minister in your country, in Denmark. How would you feel if you were one of those ministers in charge of this situation?
Well, I think I would feel very embarrassed. Not only to taxpayers, but also to all the companies who had been paying their taxes. Because if one company pays the taxes and the other one pays very little or none, they compete door to door for the same customer in trying to provide prices that are attractive, quality that's good, services that once brings customer indoor. But of course, if a company pays very little in taxes, it has a great advantage to the one that actually pays taxes. And that I would find was unfair.
Do you see now the idea of an EU tax base, common rules for all the member states to be revived now with all these cases?
Well, I think it would be a good idea, one, if we had much more transparency. One way of country-by-country reporting, of course with due consideration of confidentiality and competition, but that being one thing. But second, to have a common tax base, and not only to be able to pay sort of the same tax and to avoid some of the problems that we see today, but also maybe for smaller companies who may just do business in 2 or 3 or 4 member states. They could save so much money on auditors and tax advisors, because now they have to be quite knowledgeable to make sure that they do the right thing. And this would make things much more simple.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
It was a pleasure being with you. Thank you for having me.